Hi guys, so today I've got a video all about the Sega Saturn Twin Stick peripheral and games you can use it for via the wonders of emulation. I've got 5 games that you can use this peripheral for that never would have been possible back when this was released. The key to this is a Saturn to USB adapter, and once you have that, you can map the buttons to anything you want. The Saturn Twin Stick came out in 1996 to accompany the release of Virtual On, which was a big game for the Saturn, and Sega wanted to mimic the arcade controls at home. The Twin Stick was a Japan-only peripheral, and given it only supported initially 1 game, and over the life of the Saturn only 4 games, it didn't sell that well. This meant that there was plenty of stock that sat unsold or barely used. I picked this one up about 6 months ago from Genki Video Games in pretty much new condition, being unused with only a little wear to the box. I finally got round to having a play with it, and here are 5 games that I think the Twin Stick provides a new and interesting experience for. What is nice about this, compared to 2 standard arcade joysticks, is that each stick has 2 buttons, which opens up extra options for unusual control schemes. So, on to the first game. So first up, we've got a genre of game that's an easy choice, and that's the twin stick shooter. And here we've got the classic Robotron 2084. So twin stick shooters, generally you've got movement with the left stick and direction of fire with the right. And so, the twin sticks are kind of mimicking, what appeared in the arcade, which are a bit, rather than these big sticks, but, 2 typical arcade joysticks. I guess the difference with the Saturn twin sticks versus a typical arcade joystick is that rather than an arcade joystick kind of being small and you'd move with your finger and thumb, here you've got your whole hand wrapped around the joystick, which makes it a little bit more physical, and also that these twin sticks, as I mentioned, are pretty much new, so there's not a lot of they're still pretty tight. There's not a lot of easy movement in them. Let's fire up another game because that was rubbish. So it's certainly a slightly different experience to the arcade, and if you've got a dedicated Robotron controller, that's probably better than this. But in the absence of that, and certainly is a slightly different experience, and also compared to if you're going to use a like a Sony DualShock pad or an Xbox 360 controller, this is a much more sort of immersive and involving experience than using a gamepad. So there's a whole load of twin stick shooters out there, particularly from the arcades. So this is the first game, and now let's move on to the second game. So next up, we've got another twin stick game, but in this case it's not one that you can mimic with a pair of arcade joysticks, and this is Assault from Namco. And so in the arcades, the control scheme there was 2 sticks where you also had a trigger. So you have 2 sticks for the tank controls, controlling movement, and then fire as well. And so the twin sticks are pretty much perfect for this. So we've got tank controls, so put them both forwards, and we go forwards, both back, and we go backwards. Opposite directions we turn. Both in the direction you kind of strafe. In this case, it's kind of weird. The tank rolls over, which, physically I don't think makes much sense, but it certainly works for the control scheme. What I've done here is that there are, 2 triggers on each stick. I don't know what the triggers were like on the arcade machine, but I've got both triggers mapped to fire. There's only one button required for this. But in terms of creating a authentic experience at home, this is kind of as close as you're going to get without an actual dedicated controller. That even though these twin sticks they're not cheap, to build your own controller is going to be that bit more. Jump up here. That's kind of a neat feature. You can kind of just pepper the enemies with bombs. know, for anyone kind of uninitiated with these kind of tank controls, it's pretty tough. Let's go again, we'll just see a little bit more of this. I particularly find, you know, dodging enemy bullets pretty difficult. Oh, there we go. Do a bit of strafing. Oh, I'm actually doing alright. It's better than I got in my practice. Okay, well that's the first level clear. So yeah, I think this is a pretty cool kind of setup for games of this type. So yeah, that's game number 2. On to the next one. So next up, we've got another genre of game. In this case, it's a racing game. But it's a futuristic racing game. So, you know, normal racing game, I'd typically use either a gamepad or a wheel. But, you know, this sort of futuristic game, you know, we've got Wipeout XL here on the Sony PlayStation. The thing about the Sony PlayStation is it came out with, you know, initially with a digital pad, so, you know, a D-pad, whereas, you know, later systems had analog sticks, and the sticks of the Twin Sticks are, you know, 2 digital inputs, and so for anything that's really wanting analog controls, it's not appropriate for. But for something like this that was expecting a digital input, it's actually pretty good. So we can use the left stick to move, to turn left and right. I've got the button on the top of the right stick, my thumb, you can see it pressed down. That's the accelerator. The right stick, left and right, is actually the trigger buttons that control the air brakes. So we've got left and right on the left stick, and the left and right air brake on the right stick. And then, you know, Wipeout has power-ups and weapons, and so we've got the triggers that we can use for those. So the layout's actually pretty nice. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of Wipeout. I'm probably more of a F-Zero on the N64 fan. But there are plenty of people who do like this game, and I think this is a kind of cool and interesting alternative control scheme compared to using the gamepad. And I think that's really what, you know, I guess this video is all about, is how you can get a different experience of games you might already be familiar with, you know, with an alternate controller, and one that is fairly accessible. You know, it's a consumer product that you can you know, go on eBay, and these sticks you can probably pick one up for, I don't know, £60-70, and the Saturn adapter's another £10 or so. So yeah, here's you know, game or genre number 3, and yeah, again, I think this is pretty interesting. So yeah, on to game number 4. So we've got another twin stick shooter here, but here's a game where I think the use of the twin sticks is so much better than playing with an original gamepad on original hardware. And that game is Bang.io here, a twin stick shooter, but it's one where there is the need for additional buttons, not just the 2 sticks giving the movement and direction of fire. There's also bombs that you have where you need that additional button. So this game came out on the N64 and the Dreamcast. We've got the Dreamcast version here, and the thing is, the Dreamcast only had an analog stick or a D-pad on the left-hand side of the controller, and so it really didn't have the right setup for a twin-stick shooter game. The options in the controls were to set the 4 buttons on the right-hand side of the controller to the direction of fire. Whereas, as you can imagine, mapping that to a stick where you can actually, control the directions is so much better. So, I've got a Dreamcast, but I would much rather play this game on emulation using the Twin Sticks than using, an original controller on original hardware. And Dreamcast emulates pretty well, so no issues there. And this game, looks lovely and plays great. It's from Treasure, so they barely released a bad game. It's kind of hard to play and talk at the same time. But yeah, no, this game's great. The visuals are excellent. Plays great. And that now with a significantly improved control scheme, I think this is a game that if anyone's got twin sticks and can set this kind of setup up, I'd really recommend it. So yeah, so that's Bang.io on the Sega Dreamcast, and so yeah, now on to our final game. So last up, we've got a game that you wouldn't initially expect would work with a twin stick setup. But it works great, and that is Me and My Katamari, or any of the Katamari Damacy games, but particularly this one on the PSP, where basically on each side, you could use digital inputs, whereas the PS2 version would use the analog sticks. And the thing about the Katamari games is that basically they've got tank controls. So this series was developed by Namco, and earlier we had Assault from Namco, and really it's the exact same controls. We've got the two sticks, both of them forward will go forward, opposite directions to turn, strafe with both of them in the same direction, left or right. And for anyone kind of not familiar with these games, they're completely mental. You basically are this green guy. I think they're calling him Prince. And you have this Katamari, which is the big ball that you're pushing around, and that basically you pick up objects that are kind of smaller than you, and they then get attached to the ball. And then as you get bigger, you can then grip bigger and bigger items onto your ball. And the aim is to reach a certain size of ball or get as big a size as you can in the time allowed. So as I say, this game really works great because it's tank controls. And the nice thing with the twin sticks is you've got those extra buttons, and the L and R buttons on the PSP were used in this game. So you could your turning can be slower or faster whether you press L and R or not. I'm not doing a great job of this. I'm not big enough to pick up these items. So yeah, I think this is a really kind of neat control scheme. And the PSP is a console where there's actually, I would say, lots of really good games, and emulates really well. So you can basically play it like a console game, and not be limited to the 4 or 5 inch screen that the original console had. Now am I big enough? There we go. It's starting to get a bit bigger. You start kind of picking up everything, and really the start of the levels are typically fairly difficult, and then as you get bigger, you just start picking up everything, and the size of the Katamari grows and grows very quickly. Let's see if I can get up here. So you see in the top left, my objective is to get to 15 centimeters. We're nearly there. See if we can do it before we run out of time. Oh, who is this guy? But yeah, for anyone who hasn't played this, I'd really recommend it. The game is just completely crazy. Yeah, that's enough of that. Let's turn the sound off. So yeah, that is the fifth and final game. I think there's some things you would expect, twin stick shooters, but some things you probably wouldn't expect. And so, you know, I've got a whole list of games that will work with these Saturn twin sticks. And so I hope you've enjoyed watching. You know, if you know, please post in the comments if you found this interesting. If you did, I'll be back with an episode 2 at some point. And yeah, as I say, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.